give a round of applause to our National Park Rangers and our National Park Mules for hauling this heavy flap all the way up here, eh? Let's see, where shall I begin? It was in 1833 that a wandering artist and who had a fondness for painting portraits of Native Americans came up with the idea of a nation's park to set aside a great portion of the Great Plains for preservation of the buffalo and the wildlife out there and the preservation of the Plains Indians' way of life. His name was George Catlin. But unfortunately, the idea just remained a dream in George Catlin's mind. And then in 1864, a junior senator from California, a fellow by the name of John Kness, saw some photographs taken by a fellow by the name of Carlton Watkins of the Yosemite Valley and the Mariposa Grove of big trees. And he thought he'd go have a look at it for himself. So he set off and he had a look at Yosemite and went back to Congress and introduced a bill proposing a Yosemite Park. And Congress passed it, and in the midst of the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Yosemite Grant. Oh, Congress was very generous in this, but, Congress, being frugal as they are, wanted to find someone else to pay the bills, so they deeded the Yosemite Grant to the state of California to take care of it. And then in 1872, there was a place, a curiosity it was, discovered by a member of the Lewis and Clark expedition, a fellow by the name of John Coulter. A place with wondrous geysers and hot springs. Some called it Coulter's Hell, they did. And Congress thought, well, we cannot do anything else with this place. Why not make it a park? But they had no state to give it to. For Wyoming was a territory at the time, so they made it our first national park, the Yellowstone National Park. And then in 1880, I was talking to my friend, Mrs. Jean Carr, telling her the destruction in the Sierra of the sheep herders with their food locusts, bringing into the meadows by the thousands, eating every blade of grass and wildflower with no appreciation for their beauty. And the timber thieves cutting on the great sequoias themselves. Any fool can kill a tree, they cannot run away. And if they could, they would still be hunted down and slaughtered as long as $1 could be got from their bark hides. Now, do not get me started on timber thieves. I'll embarrass you with a wee bit of purple language, I will. So Jean Carter said, why do you not write about it? Let the nation know. I said, Mrs. Carter cannot write. Why, that is like the work of a glacier, just one slow grind. Write like you speak, she advised. In my scribble then in Martinez, the words begin to flow from an eagle-cooled pen. She gave me a letter of introduction to meet Robert Underwood Johnson, editor of the Century magazine. And I got lost in the hotel in San Francisco. For 2 hours I wandered the halls shouting, Johnson, Johnson, where are you? Confound these artificial canyons. Ahead of Mercer Maroon, Muir, is that you? Are you Johnson? I asked. We made plans for a camping trip in Yosemite. And there next to a campfire at Soda Springs in Tuolumne Meadows, we talked of the national park idea. I began to write, Johnson began to publish. I read the magazine. What gives, Johnson? Why, this is far less than what I've written. It's called editing, Muir. You use far too many gloriouses when you write. After that, I did my best to slaughter gloriouses, but it's all glorious. Well, Johnson began to publish the stories, and then other stories appeared in magazines, Atlantic Monthly, Overland Monthly, newspapers, and the people in this country began to wake up and pay attention. Letters poured into Congress by the thousands. And along with the help of the lobbying from George Stewart, editor of the Visalia Times Delta, Congress finally decided to act. And on September 25th, 1890, they passed a bill establishing the Sequoia National Park. 1 week later, they passed another one on October 1st, starting the Yosemite and General Grant National Parks. And on May 28, 1892, 20-some of us met in Warren Oldie's office in San Francisco and founded the Sierra Club. To do the wilderness some good and to make the mountains glad. I was elected as first president, the happiest day of my life. No, did not tell my wife Louie that when I got home. Soon even presidents sought my advice. In 1903, well, first of all, 1899, Mount Rainier became a national park. And then in 1903, I received a letter from President Theodore Roosevelt. He said, I want to spend 4 days in Yosemite, and I want to spend it with no one but you.